Hi, I'm Peter Boyles. It's March the 16th, and our shoot continues here at 710 KNUS with Salem Broadcasting. We've been lucky enough to do a series of great historians and I think really books that apply to exactly what we're watching right now. So I guess it was about a month and a half ago, I got a book sent to me by Regnery History entitled Revolutionary Monsters. And I started to read it. And I don't know if it's great minds thinking alike, but this book's a home run. Please say good morning. Welcome to the shoot. Donald Critchlow is our guest. He's at Arizona. Professor, good morning. Thanks for doing the show
Well,
and
thank you for
welcome. Thank you.
having me on.
You know, one of the first parts of this is this question historians ask: do men make the times, or do times make the men? And you begin with Karl Marx and, of course, to Lenin. And I was telling Mark that doing Lenin and Marx alone could be the first easy 1 hour and do a series of 5 events, 5 shows with you on each and every one of these men and their times. So I guess the opening question is, do men make the times, or do times make the men?
Well, it's a little of both. We have in the book, Revolutionary Monsters, I talk about Lenin, Mao, Castro, Mugabe, who was in Zimbabwe, and Khomeini, and they all showed signs of ambition, a lust for power, even as young men. But their circumstances in each case, their historical accident allowed them to come to power. So we're surrounded by monsters all the time in every country. And when you get chaos, you're going to have people with evil intentions who can rise to power and direct a revolution or insurgency.
All but Ayatollah are Marxist. Um, is that significant?
Yeah, I think they all share, all 5 of the men I discuss in Revolutionary Monsters, share this idea that you could create a perfect society, whether it's through the socialist new man or the new Islamic man. And they seek perfection in this world, or they see a perfected world coming. They all share in a certain way a second coming. But unlike Christians, they don't understand. They don't have any modesty. They're full of hubris and think that they can shape a perfect world without any limitations or recognition of human imperfection.
You talk in a book why you leave Stalin and Hitler out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Explain. Yeah.
Well, Hitler really. I talk about revolutionaries, and Hitler
Mm-hmm.
came to power through election. And then once he was appointed chancellor, then he basically was a coup d'etat, a police state. I don't think he was a nice man. I think he shared these same dreams of a perfect society, but he wasn't a revolutionary. Stalin was a revolutionary, but he didn't make the Russian Revolution. So I selected the 5 men from 5 different continents, different regions of the world, to show just how widespread these monsters can be, and the threat that they pose to a society such as a democratic society such as America.
Almost each and every one of these men, there's a massive historical event that happens in the First World War, or the Second World War for Mao. Any number of things that happen that open that door, and these men step through it. Lenin, without the German army or the imperial staff, would Lenin have been able to perpetrate the Bolsheviks?
No,
Yeah.
and for those who don't know this story, and each of the chapters are very short and dense, but readable. I aimed it
Oh,
for
absolutely.
younger audience, but the German general staff during World War One snuck Hitler, excuse me, often get him confused, Lenin back into to Russia in hopes that he would take power and withdraw Russia from World War One. I don't think they got what they bargained for. They thought Lenin might come to power, then he would be quickly overthrown, but they didn't understand the full nature of Lenin and his ruthlessness.
And again, the same thing is true with Mao and the Japanese invasion, the Civil War with Chiang, but without the Japanese invasion, would Mao have pulled it off?
I don't think so, but I think even more so. So after the defeat of Japan, Russia, Soviet Union provided major arms to Mao. And even more importantly, America intervened and they called for a truce between Mao and Chiang Kai-shek, and that allowed Mao to rebuild. He was on the verge of being defeated. He was on the verge of being defeated a number of times, and America, and I don't think it was a conspiracy or so or pro-Mao, but they intervened and basically saved Mao's hide. On that note, I also discussed with all five of these men how the Western press, after they came to power or when they were rising to power, really portrayed these men as kind of reformers. Mao was an agrarian reformer. Mugabe was the new African leader. They were infatuated with Castro because he could talk movies and books and current Western European thought. And so they built all of these people up, even Khomeini. When Khomeini was in exile in Paris, they portrayed him as like a simple scholar, really interested in reform and was going to bring democracy to Iran.
In a scope of history, when things are so bad inside of Russia, Imperial Russia, the ouster of the Tsar, the Mensheviks arrive, Kerensky's there, and in this turmoil, Lenin gets off the train, and it's like this amazing series of events. I'm always initially drawn back to Karl Marx, and you do a pretty good job talking about what Marx said, how he lived his life, and I listen every day on radio shows, people talking about Karl Marx, and I realize they personally have no understanding of Marx or what Marx's message was. And I made the comment every time I go someplace and they sing John Lennon's Imagine, they're singing the dialectic, aren't they? I mean,
yeah, imagine a perfect society, a world without war and so forth. And it's these monsters I discussed that take advantage of kind of the idealism among the youth. And 2 points I make that I think are found in all of the stories: the bad ideas, whether it's Marxism or radical Islam, seep into the youth early, and as well as the intelligentsia. So you have a climate already of bad ideas. The other point I make is in all of these revolutions, the ruling class fails. The ruling class realizes that it's corrupt, that it's greedy, it's lost the sense of its own values. And so I wrote the book as a warning to our American youth and to us, because we see bad ideas permeating our society, from critical race theory to transgender, people singing that we could create a perfect world. We're going to have a world of complete justice, climate justice, racial justice, equity, and so forth. So bad ideas are beginning to seep in the youth. And we also have a ruling elite, in my opinion, that's basically greedy and corrupt and only concerned about power. They're willing to do trade deals with China, even though it's a genocidal country, a police state, all for the buck. Meanwhile, they're willing to allow American workers, manufacturers to be closed, workers to lose their jobs, and so forth. So we have a weak ruling elite right now. and bad ideas coming in.
I was first affected as becoming a reader when I read Wright Mills, albeit a Marxist, but when Mills wrote The Power Elite, and
Right.
something snapped. And then the Marxist analysis of who's really in charge. And your point's well taken. When young people become, I don't know if they become Leninists, but they become Marxist, and they can see it. I mean, it's, as you just pointed out, it's self-evident. But what do you think radicalizes? I think on some levels you understand a Lenin, not to support their views, but you understand what they did and how bad the Tsar was, and how bad the war was, and how bad starvation was, and treating the peasants. And it was like this witch's brew ready to have a fuse stuck in it. And these conditions, these people emerge from these conditions. Professor, do you think that's fair?
Well, actually, I disagree a little bit.
Okay.
In that I think all of these men that I discuss in Revolutionary Monsters, even as young men, they show signs of arrogance.
Yeah.
They all had poisoned souls, if you will. And so I don't think you could blame the conditions of blame the Tsar for Lenin's hubris, and he blamed the Tsar for his brother's death. His brother had tried to assassinate the Tsar
His
and was
father.
executed.
Yeah, his father.
So
tried to kill his father. Yeah.
Yeah, and but I do think that but the issue of how these people become revolutionaries, or how young people are becoming revolutionaries, one of the things that inspired me or sparked me to write the book was seeing a survey in which 40% of millennials believe that we should have socialism. And
I saw that as well. Yeah.
And 60% believe that the state, we should not have private property, and the state should own all property. I mean, it's frightening, actually. And yes.
No, I was going to say that if you looked at that, it was First Amendment was part of that too, as the Second was part of that. And like yourself, it chilled me. It's like you have no idea what you're asking for.
And I'm still teaching, and the other day, one of the students in my class said that he had never heard of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and he did not know that Poland had been a communist, a prior communist country. So what we're seeing is the results of K through 12 education, in which they've just gotten propagandized about racial justice and climate justice. Look, we all believe in justice. We all think that we need to have things get better, but it's this kind of perfectionism. But they're not learning, kind of basic history and just basic facts. I mean, when you don't know that there was there was a Cold War, and that Berlin, Germany, used to be divided, and that Poland had been a communist country. I mean, I could go on and on about what I see as a decline in just basic knowledge.
No, you're absolutely right.
I think that's part of the game plan here.
And Marx actually talks about molding, M-O-L-E, molding in, and I believe it's happened to the education system. And he talked about molding into bureaucracies, and there used to be an underground magazine out of Boston called The Old Mole for that reason.
Yeah, right.
And and they as a matter of fact, the Fabians thought you could do it in a the Bolsheviks scared the hell out of them, so they thought if I correctly understand them, you could do it. You could softly bring it about.
The Fabian socialists were in Britain at the turn of the late 19th century into the 20th, and they were called Fabians after the
Two Faces.
Roman general who used tactics of, instead of direct assault, back attack and then retreat, attack and retreat. And they were the Fabian socialist turn. That was one approach. They weren't communists, but they were
No.
they were socialist. But I don't think there's a communist conspiracy today, I should say. But I do think that we see kind of infiltration of our, that the left has taken over, progressives have taken over all of our major institutions, step by step, universities, education, the media,
the church,
and the churches, and entertainment,
pro sports,
media, and now sports, but also they've gotten themselves in positions of power in state and local and federal government. It's not that they're being directed by a puppet master, Soros or so, but they want a transformation, a radical transformation of America, which they see as racist and so forth.
I love what you write and what you say. When I watched them start to tear down statues, and they said, well, Peter, we just want Robert E. Lee. Now they got Kate Smith, Stephen Foster, and my ultimate fear is Rushmore, that Rushmore represents. No, I'm serious. I mean, I go to Rushmore every year. Yeah. On my motorcycle.
I didn't want to sound like Harris cackling. No, I think
No.
It's part of they want to erase history. So they've torn down abolitionists, even. Out of their own ignorance in part, because it was mob action. But basically there's a desire to erase history by, like the French revolutionaries tried to do, Lenin tried to do, erase the history and then you create your new one. George Orwell in 1984 talks about this. That's exactly
that was Winston Smith's job.
Right.
Yeah, no, and I'm watching it happen. The 1619 Project, and I don't mind revisionism in history. I like to read the revisionists, but this isn't what this is it?
Well, there's a difference between revising argument and revising fact. That's So we have revisionist argument, but when you start revising facts, that becomes fabrication, and that's the fabrication of history. And unfortunately, that's 1619. I mean, she actually fabricates things.
Oh, I waded through some of it, and I said, well, it's just absurd. It's not true.
Right.
And yet, if you sell that to a little kid, who comes out on the other end of that tunnel?
Right.
You've radicalized. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think in all of these societies that are created in China, Russia, Cuba, Zimbabwe, and Iran, they understand the importance of education. So they indoctrinate the youth. So when Mao, which I discuss in the book on the chapter of Mao, so when Mao is threatened with power, counter power within the elite, he turns to the youth that have been propagandized. It's now many years after the revolution, and mobilizes them, and they become the Red Guard, and they beat and kill their teachers. I was taught for a year in Hong Kong right at the turnover, and there was a English teacher from China next to me, and she told me that she was in the Cultural Revolution. All the teachers were in an apartment complex, and one night the Red Guard broke in to fellow teacher's apartment next door, and she heard that night him being beaten to death. So that's the kind of horror that we face when you have an indoctrinated youth as a result of a revolution.
And in the end, Mao had to cut the army back loose on them to stop it.
Right. He unleashed the PLL.
Yeah, yeah. I want to do I really want to do a series with you. I get to do this YouTube shoot, and you're brilliant. I mean, we haven't even scratched Lenin. No, my thoughts. I'd like to do a series with you on each and every one of these people. What of the five of them? What threads run through all of them? You know, they're in different continents and different ethnicities, and you know all the differences. But what's the thread that runs through them all?
Yeah, basically deep arrogance, deep arrogance, profound ruthlessness, and all given to this millennialism that there's going to be a new age. So you can sacrifice humans, kill your comrades, eliminate any opposition within your own parties, and then you begin to see yourself. They begin to see themselves as necessary for the revolution. Without them, the revolution will fail. So all of them developed, try to develop a cult around them, a personality cult. And that's the other thing that occurs in these revolutions. You know, destruction of the old, erase history, indoctrination of youth, and then you begin to build a cult of personality around the leader, the all-wise leader. And people after indoctrination, terror, they all institute a terrorist state, police, terrible. And so people are intimidated, and then people are propagandized, and most people come to be accepting of that society. It's hard for us to believe as Americans, but they become captive minds.
Lenin said, or I've read that Lenin said, the purpose of terror is terror. That,
right.
That's the purpose of it. And I'm drawn to the French Revolution and people like Robespierre. Yet Robespierre, they eventually come for Robespierre. And one of the things I see in this country today is the witch hunters then will hunt the witch hunters. Eventually, they turn on themselves. Stalin did that. He eventually hunts the old Bolsheviks. Mao does it with the Red Guard, Lin Piao, and others. They seem to hunt their own in the end to cleanse. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think with Stalin, you know, he uses the KGB to eliminate the old Bolsheviks. All of the old, those were the original revolutionaries. Yeah. All of them are eliminated. They're sent off to the Gulag, assassinated, and so forth. So he eliminates them, and then he uses the KGB to do so. That's the secret police, and then he purges the KGB after he's completed his own cleansing.
Of all of
you're
these
not
people,
safe under dictators.
Well, and it's, you know, the closer you are to the flame, the closer you are to getting burned. And no, all these people, he gets rid of them, and eventually, I mean, it isn't until Khrushchev where they actually read Lenin's will and they go, look who this guy is. But by then it's too late.
Also, the other thing that I think occurs in these revolutions is that people are terrorized, but they end up accepting the society they live in.
Yeah,
and one memoir by a Russian dissident, he talks about growing up in Moscow in the 30s under Stalin, and he said life was actually pretty good compared to during the Civil War, when he said we had lights, we had our own apartment, and then the KGB comes and arrests their neighbors, who they were close to, and and what did they conclude? Gee, we didn't know that they were working for the Zionists and the French. They arrest another neighbor, and they conclude, yes, boy, the Zionist conspiracy, Masonic conspiracy, British French intelligence is more widespread. So people accept that. It's hard for us to, in many ways, for us to understand, But on the other hand, we've just gone through COVID. We went through a lockdown. We went through all wearing a mask. We followed orders to get vaccine. And I'm concerned about public health. I'm vaccinated. We could just say this.
Yeah.
But I mean, people went along without much complaint. And any dissident scientist, medical authority who raised questions about the effectiveness of this, or maybe we should be doing therapeutics instead of vaccines, they were canceled. And there was, some people were upset, but a lot of it wasn't like we were condemning it. We're seeing this kind of censorship in universities, in the classroom. We're seeing it in high schools, grade schools. We're seeing it in the workplace. And people are trying to go along in their lives and not stand up and say anything about it. Now, some parents are now, because they saw what the propaganda was and the miseducation. But, there was not massive resistance. Most people want to go along with things. And, and it's kind of like, in this way, the Fabians were right. They get one step at a time. Other people go to the next step.
It was Bernard Shaw and this inner circle that were, even the great Khrushchev, you'll welcome it. When it gets here, you're going to welcome it. And I read these young, they're writing polemics and they're writing ideas, and I'm thinking to myself, do you have any idea what you're saying? Do you have any idea? It's almost as though part of the world is running down this road and part of our country is running up it, embracing crazy. And
there's a censorship that's occurring on all kinds of levels. It's and increasing polarization, which which we know is severe. But I've written, I think in the last 6 years, 5 books or so, and they were. This one was published by Regnery, but the others were published by really good academic presses. And not a single one of them, I didn't expect the Regnery book, but it did not get any reviews in academic presses, even though it was published by books by Cambridge and University of Penn. That's the kind of cancel culture that we're experiencing. And so really bless you, Peter, and other people that are doing podcasts and radio shows, because it's alternative media that we need, alternative platform. And let's hope that the next time we talk, you're not in a bunker somewhere.
Here's what I'd like to do. First of all, Mark will put the book up, but it's so well put together. And I was making a decision. I want to do a series with you. And we've kind of did an umbrella, an overview. And I want to focus on some of these people, because an hour isn't enough, because, you set the stage, the atmosphere, the climate of the times, and they walk in, and I'm not too sure, what's the great line? Nothing lasts forever. All empires fail, and it seems to turn out bad when they do. Favorite's not the right word, but of all these 5 men that you write about, lousy choice of words, favorite. Is there one of the 5 you're drawn to? And we'll pick that up the next time we're together.
Yeah, let me just say, when I was writing the book, it was during the BLM movement. Right. We saw riots in the summer, so it was that summer, and it was frightening to me. And so it was so in fact, at that part I was writing the Cultural Revolution, and I couldn't help but see similarities. Wow. I don't, all of them were, it was grim writing, I'll say. I mean, there's some really grim parts in this book. The book is meant to be inspirational. So so how do we decide on favorites? Who do I think is the most evil? You can measure it by millions of deaths, I guess. Mao would come out on top of that. Of course. sheer barbarity. Mugabe is pretty evil. He has tribal soldiers who've been trained in North Korea come in and attack a rival tribe and starve them to death, rape their women, and so forth. That was pretty terrible. In ruthlessness, Lenin basically tops them all.
I agree.
And I think in terms of hubris and just kind of evilness in his own way, I have to say Khomeini. I read Khomeini in translation. Mm-hmm. They always talk about him as a Islamic scholar. His scholarship is basically referring to historical precedents, but he pages and pages, chapters raving about the Jews and Western imperialism, sexualizing the Iranian women and so forth. He's pretty. He was probably the hardest to read because he was the least intellectual, actually.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
I respect you immensely. We'll do one in 2 weeks. I have something else to do, and then we'll do another one of these and focus in on
that
these
would be
5
great.
men. Yeah, I mean, I really, really, really respect your work, and you
well,
capture.
thank you very much.
No, please. The nexus from one to the other. And then I'll set this question up. Who's next?
Okay. Sounds
good.
Okay, well, thank you very much. You take care, Peter. Okay,
you too.
bye-bye.
Professor, thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your time.